week 16 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few hitters I look to sell and trade this week. The first hitter, Ezequiel Tovar of the Colorado Rockies. So Tovar, it's been an up and down season for him where he's had spurts where he's had big games and then times where he hasn't done much on the season. 16 home runs, 46 RBIs, 50 runs scored, 4 stolen bases, a 278 average, and a 305 on base. At Tovar, he's a free swinger. Only 27 points higher is his on-base percentage to his batting average. And over the last couple weeks, though, one of the hottest hitters in all fantasy, and that's why he's bumped that average up big. 4 home runs, 9 RBIs, 7 runs scored, a 395 average, and a 415 on base. So right now, he's playing great baseball. Tovar. Last season, 15-73 with a 253 average, but he does strike out a whole lot. Is Tovar, and I think he's just on a hot streak right now. Well, he's on a tear, and he's a shortstop where I think fantasy owners could get top value for. He's a sell-high candidate. I'm not saying just dump him off for anybody, but if you could get a great deal, this would be the time to do it. July 14th at the Mets, 3 for 4, 2 homers, 4 RBIs. July 19th versus the Giants, 2 for 5, a homer, 2 RBIs. July 20th versus the Giants, 2 for 4, a homer, 2 RBIs, 2 runs scored. And July 22nd versus Boston, 2 for 6 with a run. So Tovar has been on a home run tear, like I mentioned, 4 home runs in the last 4 games he's played. But it's just not going to keep up, I believe, even though he's on pace for about 25, 28 home run range. But like I said, last season, it was not a great rookie year, but the numbers weren't horrible overall. But right now, well, he's white hot and one of the best hitters in fantasy baseball the last 2 weeks. He's a sell-high hitter this week. Next hitter, Lawrence Butler of the Oakland Athletics. So Butler, one of those players I've mentioned a lot week after week. If you could pick someone off the waiver wire who's not really had much value or an unknown and then flip him in a deal for someone with more consistency and a track record, that's something you do. And Butler's come out of nowhere over the last 3-4 weeks. On the year, 9 home runs, 30 RBIs, 24 runs scored, 6 stolen bases, a 237 average, and a 309 on base. But the last 2 weeks, he's been on a tear, and this Oakland team has turned things around. And they're at least a team competing now, where many people thought easily they would be the worst team possibly in major leagues this season. So the last couple weeks, 5 home runs, 18 RBIs, 9 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, a 455 average, and a 514 on base. So one of the hottest hitters in all Major League Baseball. And going into last week, he was only owned in 6% of fantasy leagues, and now owned in 55% of fantasy leagues. So that number's skyrocketing his ownage, and he's had 5 games in a row with 2 or more hits in those games. July 14th to Philly, the big one, 3 for 6, 3 home runs, 6 RBIs. July 19th versus the Angels, 2 for 4, run, 2 RBIs. July 30th versus the Angels, 3 for 4, 3 RBIs. July 21st versus the Angels, 2 for 3, 2 runs scored. And July 22nd versus the Astros, 2 for 4 with a run. So, like I said, multiple hit games, 5 games in a row. He's been a catalyst for sure for this Oakland Athletic team. And like I said, they've been one of the hottest teams in the league of late, winning 4 out of 5 games. So right now, while Butler's playing good baseball, and we don't know how long it's going to last, even though he's been the table setter. He's a sell-high candidate this week. Next hitter, Rhys Hind of the Cincinnati Reds. So he's been on a tear since he got called up a few weeks ago. 5 home runs, 11 RBIs, 7 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, a 353 average, and a 389 on base. So Hind's already 5 home runs in only 34 at-bats. And I know he got most of those home runs last week before the All-Star break. But still, to come up and put up some impressive power numbers like that, even though it's not sustainable, he'll be a sell-high candidate this week. And Hins now is starting to tail off a little bit, where the league's caught up to him and have made adjustments in the early going, where he's won for his last 12. So July 12th versus the Marlins, 1 for 3, a homer, 4 RBIs, 2 runs scored. July 13th versus the Marlins, 2 for 3, 2 homers, 3 RBIs, 3 runs scored. July 14th versus the Marlins, 0 for 4. July 19th at the Nats, 1 for 4. And July 20th at the Nats, 0 for 4. And sat out the 21st. So right now, he's been a power, no doubt about it. But like I said, those numbers aren't sustainable. And he wasn't even a highly touted prospect in this Red system. Their number 15th prospect coming in to the season. So right now, while Hins is showing good power and it was a hot pickup last week and now tailing off a little bit, this is a time to sell him off, because like I said, I don't think these numbers are going to stay up. And he's already slumping a little bit, 1 for his last 12, so he's a sell-high hitter This week, the next hitter, his teammate Jonathan India, the Cincinnati Reds. India 2 seasons ago, he had a great year. Last season, a down year for him. And now this year, not really a great year, but he's definitely picked things up over the last few weeks. On the year, 8 home runs, 40 RBIs, 9 stolen bases, 50 runs scored, a 275 average, and a 379 on base. His on base to batting average, a great number, no doubt about it, 104 points higher. And he's always been a solid on base guy, is India, but the power's been down. Batting average, pretty decent, 275, but stolen bases, he's not going to get you much. And right now, I think India, he's a couple category type of player, and he's not a crazy ceiling for him. And the last month, 3 home runs, 10 RBIs, 3 stolen bases, 21 runs scored, a 364 average, 52 on base. So like I said, that on base is going to be a great number. The batting average over the last month obviously isn't sustainable here for Jonathan India. And I think you could get good value for him, obviously, being a second baseman. And it's one of the weakest positions in fantasy baseball. The last few games for India, July 14th versus the Marlins, 1 for 2 a run in that one. July 19th at the Nats, 1 for 4, rib a stolen base. July 20th at the Nats, 1 for 3, 2 runs. July 21st at the Nats, 1 for 4. And July 22nd at the Braves, 1 for 4 with an RBI. So India, he's been playing good baseball. This Red team, they've lost 4 out of 5, though, right now. And even with India putting up good numbers, it's still minimum impact. It's batting average, on base percentage, and runs scored. He's not doing anything huge in other categories in terms of home runs, RBIs, is India, and stolen bases. Now, with the average, which I think is a little bit fluky, a good on base percentage, which his track record shows, he's always had a decent on base to batting average. And run scored he'll give you, but everything else he's not really doing. So right now, while those stats are inflated, he's a sell-high hitter this week. And the final hit I look to sell is Byron Buxton of the Minnesota Twins. So Byron Buxton, he's definitely turned things around and went to a shorter approach and compact swing this season, where his average is way up there. On the year, 11 home runs, 40 RBIs, 45 runs scored, 5 stolen bases, a 282 average, and a 335 on base percentage. So Buxton, he was never a high batting average hitter over the last couple seasons, where he was pretty much swinging for the fences, and that was it for Buxton. But the last month, he's on a tear, 7 home runs, 18 RBIs, 20 runs scored, a whopping 403 average, and a 453 on base. So right now, I don't think that's going to stick up, obviously, but for Byron Buxton. I don't think in one off season that batting average is going to jump and continue the way it has. Last season, he hit 207. Was Buxton 304 at-bats, and this season he's hitting 282, so to bump that batting average up 70-plus points is a big number, no doubt about it. But like I said, I don't think it's going to be sustainable for Buxton. And right now, well, he's been on a hot streak over the last 2 weeks to a month. He's a sell-high hitter this week. July 12th at San Francisco, 2 for 4. July 14th at the Giants, in that when he pinched hit, scored a run and walked. July 20th versus the Brewers, 0 for 4. July 21st versus the Brewers, 2 for 5, 2 homers, 2 RBIs. And July 22nd versus Philly, 0 for 5. So right now, Buxton showing some pop, obviously, which has always been a strong suit for him. But the batting average to go up 70-plus points, like I said, and to have a good on-base percentage, I just don't see being sustainable for Byron Buxton. And I think those numbers drop where he'll go back to being a home run or nothing and a high strikeout rate type of hitter. So try to get a pitcher in a deal for Buxton this week. So that's a few pitchers I look to sell and trade for Week 16 of the fantasy baseball season.